The story of Alfons Zeileis and his family has arrived in the year 1929. Right-wing extremists in Thuringia have been procuring a majority for the state parliament since 1924. In 1929, the National Socialist Party, NSDAP, has become increasingly important in elections. On 14th of September 1930, the NSDAP becomes the second strongest force in the German Reichstag. Government is only possible with emergency decrees. In this holiday program, we will look at the elements that made up this system, which ultimately led to the Second World War and one of the worst mass murders in world history. As you always know everything better afterwards, I try to take the perspective of that time. In this video, we look at the topic, the psychology of crowds. The book by Gustave Le Bon, which was published in Paris in 1895, had the title The Crowd, a study of the popular mind. This book was a favorite read of the dictators Mussolini and Hitler. A crowd is created when people come together for a specific purpose. Rational considerations no longer play a role. Regardless of the intellect of the members, the masses act out of emotions and instincts and are easily influenced by unscrupulous leaders. Le Bon's aim is to prevent the abuse of people made possible by the psychology of the crowds through education. He describes the crowds as easy to influence, filled with a specific religiosity and, under certain circumstances, absorbed in a communal soul. The members of the crowd lose their ability to criticize. The crowd is easily swayed and susceptible to naive legends. Its members are undifferentiated and less intelligent. Their leaders are often effective due to their great oratory skills. The theory goes much further, but that is beyond the scope of this video. The book is still published in many languages today. Read it! This postcard of 1934, with which the Nazi dictatorship celebrates what it calls the seizure of power at 30th of January 1933, symbolizes for me what mass influence in National Socialism is all about. A torchlight procession through the Brandenburg Gate. The individual is practically invisible in the torchlight procession, especially as everyone is wearing brown uniforms. The individual is completely absorbed into the crowd. I did a little experimental analysis on the German newspaper portal. From the year the German Empire was founded until the fall of the Nazi dictatorship, I analyzed how many newspaper editions in a given year contain the word torchlight procession once or several times. Here is the result. Torchlight processions were very popular in the German Empire, which encouraged nationalism, as you can see in episode 3, Alfons Zeileis and the Emperor. Mention of torchlight processions reached a peak on the eve of the First World War, with 3,452 mentions. National enthusiasm was particularly high. Then there is war. Torches are needed for lighting, but not for walking around with. It is only from 1923 to 1924 that there is another jump, namely a fourfold increase from 405 to 1,608 mentions. In 1924, right-wing extremists become majority procurers in the Thuringian state parliament. The Reichstag elections in 1928 brought a clear setback for the NSDAP. They intensified their propaganda work with torchlight processions, among other things. Although the number of mentions declines, it remains almost consistently above the level of the imperial era. The absolute peak came in 1933, the year in which the National Socialists became the strongest party and abused their power to abolish democracy. Torchlight processions remained a propaganda tool until they virtually disappeared again in the storm of the Second World War, conjured up by the Nazis, and, incidentally, did not return to any great extent. The psychology of the crowds and power are closely linked. The topic of power as a further element of the Nazi dictatorship will be dealt with in the next video.